Professor Wiseguy here, and I'm really starting to enjoy bad habits. I embrace bad habits and come back over and over again with enjoyment and not a bit of regret. I can't get bad habits off of my mind. Oh, wait, you think that I'm talking about bad habits as in, well, bad habits, right? Like smoking or picking my nose or something. No, I'm talking about Ed Sheeran's bad habits. Wait, I suppose he has some bad habits, but I'm talking about the song called Bad Habits. You see, one of my bad habits is listening over and over again to bad habits. Confused? Well, that's what happens sometimes when we write about things with titles, but we don't make it clear that it's the title that we're naming. That's why we have rules for identifying titles in our writing when we mention them. Now, these are not our titles, the phrases we put at the top of a paper. No, they're titles that we're thinking and writing about. Open up a writing handbook to the place that talks about identifying titles, and you'll most likely see a list of a bunch of types of works that you handle in one way, and then a bunch of other types that you handle in a different way. Now, if you're like me, you don't want to memorize 2 lists of a dozen different examples. That's why it's a really good thing that you're watching this 5-minute fix. I can give you a very simple solution that works almost every time. Ready? If it's a work that is a whole thing, a big thing, then you italicize it. If it's a part of a greater whole, then you quotate it. Now, what would you do with the title of my YouTube channel, Professor Wiseguy? You'd italicize it, right? And what about the title of this video? It's part of that greater whole, so you'd quotate it. Boom! What about that song by Ed Sheeran, Bad Habits? We'd quotate it because it's part of something bigger. As I record this, there's no title for the upcoming album that Bad Habits will go on, but when it does appear, we'll italicize it. And even if it never appears, the song will still be quotated since songs are usually part of bigger things. So think about this pattern. You could watch an episode of that wonderful A&E show Hoarders. That episode's called Cobra. What are you going to do with these? You'll italicize the big thing, Hoarders, and quotate the episode title, right? Cobra. I read an article recently called Bank Robbery Goes Awry Because of Some Bad Handwriting. It was at the Huffington Post. You know what to do with these, right? You see a magazine article called Season Preview in Sports Illustrated. So Sports Illustrated is the big thing, while Season Preview is the part of the greater whole. What are you going to do with a poem in a collection of poetry? What about with an entire book? How about with a chapter in that book? Are you seeing the pattern here? Now, you might be thinking about some weird exception. For example, there's that huge work of fiction by J.R.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings. But if you know much about that, then you know it is 3 books, and those books are made up of chapters, so you have 3 layers of titles, right? Lord of the Rings, the books, the chapters. I did mention that this approach is something that works almost every time, but really I'm not sure that those lists of types of works in the handbooks would make Lord of the Rings a lot clearer. Now, why does all this matter? Well, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's just an English teacher thing. But other times it's really important. Like when I talked about Ed Sheeran's Bad Habits. Without the quotation marks, then we're looking at Ed's unhealthy addiction to Pokemon or something. But with them, it's a song title. Have you seen Loki? Without the italics, then I want to know if you've actually encountered Thor's brother in the flesh. With them, we're talking about a Marvel series. We could come up with other examples, but I think these should make the point. Use the italics and the quotation marks at the appropriate points, whether it's in your text, in a bibliography, or in your own title, like this, The Man in Black, Dark Clothing in Hamlet. So avoid the bad habits and follow these rules. 1. If it's the name of a part of a greater whole, then quotate it. If it's the name of the whole thing, then italicize it. Do those things and your writing will be clearer and will avoid at least some bad habits. That's all I have to say about that. But what do you think? Comments are below. After that, get out of here.